Hello and welcome back to Canada. Today we'll be building a marina and a jet ski rental on the shorelines of Elizabeth Bay, the bay from which you're currently seeing this wonderful view. I do need y'all's help as I'm not completely sure as to what type of music to use in this series, as I do really love the series theme, which is a song called Dulcinea by Steve Adams, but in terms of style I do love these piano pieces. For this episode I've gone with a mix, but comment down below which one you prefer so that I can make a decision. Anyhow, let's get right into the build, which was unfortunately recorded before I made the lighting changes that you'll see in the cinematics, but is nevertheless an awesome build that does bring a lot of character into the city. The build itself is a marina across Bayview Boulevard from Canada Place. I originally wanted to make this a how-to guide, but it involves a great deal of changes to the map, so it'll be an episode of Canada instead. I've filled in the gaps between those two islands to form a now longer and wider peninsula that expands Elizabeth Bay and will be called Crown Point. As to the marina, I've placed the admin building / yacht club on one end with a boat ramp and a crane, and then for the other end I placed some more PO condos that are a bit shorter but are designed to fill the space well. After all that, I used Ronix 9's docks to outline the marina, and then I moved on to using these piers with slips to actually create the body of the marina itself. Now for this build I went ahead and bought the Sunset Harbor DLC because I'd seen some buildings on the workshop that functioned as fishless fishing docks and essentially allow you to have sailboats and speedboats navigating your waters along paths you place. Both Vancouver and to a somewhat lesser extent Toronto have a large boating culture, so I absolutely had to include these. And as you saw in the opening time-lapse, they do add an enormous amount of life to the city's waterways. I placed 3 of these with 3 different paths in my marina. Before continuing to work on the naval aspects of my marina, I set about shaping the mainland portions, starting with some ploppable surfaces. Many marinas are built around public spaces, and since this marina is in a relatively high traffic area, I did the same for the areas that are ringing the piers, and on the opposite side of the club building you'll see me build a parking lot and a more detailed public boat launch. Having finalized the shape of the marina, I realized that I couldn't fit so many slips in, so I removed some. And then I set about placing all of the prop boats to sort of fill out the marina. While the larger boats didn't really fit into the slips, I had enough smaller sailboats to fill in enough spots, making sure to leave some empty because there are a lot of boats on the water. I did leave some piers lining either side for larger boats or visiting yachts. These props were hard to work with because the marker appears on the seafloor and the boat only appears once it's been placed, but I did manage. In the past, when I'd build marinas, I'd heavily detail them and place a bunch of props on the piers, but having visited a lot of marinas over the summer, I've realized that for realism, just leaving the piers basically blank works best. With my piers and boats finished, I began detailing the public spaces of the marina. And since this marina is barely above sea level, it was essential to handle the terrain differences well. For this first space, I've used some stairs and used PO to essentially expand them along the length of the area. These open up the space a lot more than a retaining wall would. And I've covered the asphalt with some tiles that I quite like in this spot because they somewhat match the color of the piers and keep the area visually consistent. For the second spot, I went with an opposite approach in terms of handling the terrain, and had only a small staircase with some walls with bushes. I went with bushes because I wanted to keep the stadium more visible from the water, and then to detail the area I placed some touristy anchor sculptures at the back, again keeping the colors consistent, and then I placed some planters with an enormous chestnut tree and some tables surrounding it. Nothing too complicated. In front of the condos I placed some planters with smaller scale foliage and some flowering trees, and I'll do off camera what I should have done here and open up an exit for the residents. For the other area it was more of the same trees and tables, but it's worth noting that the massive trees do add a lot to the area even beyond the shade. With this end of the marina done, I shifted over to the opposite end and started off by figuring out just how much valuable land I was going to cover in asphalt. And then I expanded my boat ramp into something a bit less suicidally steep, and expanded one side of the asphalt out to meet it, ensuring that it wouldn't be just randomly poking out. Then I used the prop line tool and my favorite yellow decals to create parking spots for cars with trailers after they drop off their boats at the ramp. Next to that lot, I placed a normal parking lot, and I left a lot of empty space around these spots because, having experience driving with a trailer, I can tell you that every bit of space is essential. Then I added a small little warehouse for storage and just to fill in some space, and I made a small little refueling station with some gas tanks. I placed a planter curb network along the edge of the asphalt to protect visitors to the yacht club, and then I placed some really wonderful tree assets to add some greenery to the area. The yacht club building is the Monaco asset, but I've shrunken it a lot with PO to fit into the area. And then I added some decals to wear down the area and sully the asphalt a bit. And then I used some of Ronix 9's puddles because this is a marina. I later added some props with trailers and pickup trucks, along with one dropping a boat off, and this area does end up being a bit more of a diorama because of the fact that otherwise Sims would never use it. The latter portion of the episode will be spent here at the base of Elizabeth Bay. I'd quickly covered up the exposed area with some trees for a cinematic last episode, and I really did like how they looked here, so I decided to keep it. But I really couldn't just lose such a valuable piece of waterfront entirely to nature, so I built these piers in front of it, and these are just a nice place to come and fish, or to go on a date and watch the boats sail by. Here by the intersection with Iqaluit Street that we built in episode 2, I've placed a somewhat larger pier area with some staircases, and then to cover up the unfixable terrain, I placed some more walls around them, and originally planned for them to be just planters and add some greenery to the area. As a result of that, I ended up covering the roofs with ploppable grass surfaces. I wasn't able to run any of my sailboat lines into the heart of the bay here because they'd clip through the metro bridge. So in order to have some marine activity in this area, I built a quick little jet ski rental on this corner. I just surrounded the hut with some jet skis in the water, and then I put another boat spawner only for the jet skis that actually go in the bay. Then I added some stacks of jet skis, a refueling station, and a speedboat for recovering stupid tourists. After that, I decided to put some commercial buildings under the planters, which allowed me to cover the rest of the area with some tables and umbrellas. That is it for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe, and if you want, you can support my channel on my Patreon, which is always appreciated, and it's linked down below. The next episode of Canada will likely see us continuing to fill out Crown Point, and I don't know when the next how-to video is. Have a great day.